Evenings in our house had always been quiet. Too quiet. It was the kind of silence that used to feel peaceful but had recently turned into something oppressive. I sat in the living room, staring at the clock on the wall, its hands seeming to move slower with every passing second. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of a table lamp, and my dinner, still warm but entirely unappetizing, sat untouched on the coffee table in front of me. Clara was busy again. She'd texted earlier, saying she'd be home late. Nothing unusual, she claimed. Just dinner with a colleague. I should have been used to it by now, shouldn't I? Lately, she was always getting home late, and I always waited. That night, as I sat there in the suffocating quiet, I felt something I hadn't experienced before. A gnawing, restless tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. But instead of acting on it, I let it fester. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it really was just work. But deep down, I knew. I stood up, pacing the room, my thoughts circling back to the changes in her behavior. The new outfits, the sudden attention to her appearance, the way her phone had become an extension of her hand. She never used to care about locking her screen. Now it seemed like she was hiding a part of her life from me. I told myself I wouldn't snoop. Trust was the foundation of any marriage, wasn't it? But trust works both ways. And lately, I couldn't shake the feeling that mine was being taken for granted. When Clara finally came home that night, the sound of her heels clicking against the hardwood floors broke the stillness. She walked into the living room, smiling faintly, but there was something strained in her expression. "You're still up?" she asked, her voice light, almost too casual. I forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She set her bag down on the counter and hesitated for a moment, as if waiting for me to say something. But I couldn't, because no matter how much I wanted to confront her, I didn't have the proof or the courage. "Good night, August," she said softly, disappearing into the bedroom without waiting for a reply. I stood there for a long time after she left, staring at the empty space where she'd been. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't oppressive. It was deafening, and for the first time I felt like a stranger in my own home. Something was about to break. I could feel it, and when it did, I knew there'd be no going back. The next morning, Clara was up earlier than usual. I watched her through the crack in the bedroom door as she moved around the kitchen, pouring coffee, humming softly to herself. She looked so at ease, so normal, that it almost made me question everything I'd been feeling the night before. But as I watched her, I noticed something different, something I couldn't ignore. She was wearing perfume, the kind she only used for special occasions. Not the light, floral scent she wore to work, but something heavier, sultrier. She hadn't worn that in years. Not for me, anyway. And then there was the outfit. A fitted dress that clung to her in all the right places, paired with heels I hadn't seen in months. It was a far cry from her usual business casual attire. "Big day at work?" I asked casually, stepping into the kitchen. She jumped slightly, not expecting me to be there. "Oh hey, yeah, kind of. Just a lot going on. I have a meeting with some new clients today." Her answer was quick, rehearsed even. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. "You look nice," I said, though the words felt heavy in my mouth. "Thanks." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You've got the day off, right? Any plans?" I shrugged. "Nothing special. Might go for a run. Maybe clean up the garage." She nodded, barely listening, her attention already back on her phone. As she sipped her coffee, she scrolled through her messages, her thumb moving quickly across the screen. I couldn't see who she was texting, but the way she tilted the screen away from me told me all I needed to know. I wanted to ask her outright. I wanted to demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there in silence, the tension between us thick enough to choke on. "All right, I should get going," she said, grabbing her bag and heading for the door. And then, without thinking, I said it. "Clara, wait." She turned, her hand on the doorknob, her expression wary. What is it? I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. If there's something you're not telling me, if there's something going on that I should know about, now's the time to say it. Her eyes widened for a split second before she caught herself. What are you talking about, August? You're being ridiculous. Am I? I asked, stepping closer. Because lately, it feels like you're living a life I'm not a part of. Late nights, secret texts, meetings that seem to last forever. It's like I don't even know who you are anymore. Her expression hardened. You're overthinking everything. I've told you it's work. I can't help it if things are busy right now. Maybe instead of accusing me, you should try trusting me. She didn't wait for me to respond. She opened the door and walked out, letting it slam shut behind her. I stood there, staring at the closed door, her words echoing in my mind. Try trusting me. But trust isn't blind. Trust is earned. And right now, she was doing everything to shatter mine. For the rest of the day, I tried to distract myself. I went for a run, cleaned the garage like I said I would, but no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the unease. Something wasn't right, and I knew it wasn't just in my head. That evening, as I sat in the living room waiting for her to come home, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. If she wouldn't give me answers, I'd find them myself. When Clara walked through the door later that night, she looked surprised to see me still awake. "You're up again?" she asked, setting her bag down. "Yeah," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I need to ask you something." Her shoulders tensed, but she tried to play it off. "What now, August?" "I'm exhausted." I stood up, meeting her gaze. "Who's Ryan?" Her face went pale, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment, neither of us said anything, the silence between us louder than any argument. "August," she finally said, her voice shaking. "You went through my phone?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was already written all over her face. Clara froze, her hand still on the strap of her bag, as if holding onto it might somehow anchor her in the storm that was brewing. Her face went through a range of emotions. Shock, anger, and then something else, fear. "Answer me," I said, my voice low but steady. "Who is Ryan?" She swallowed hard, her lips parting as if she were about to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she dropped her bag and crossed her arms, leaning back against the door like a cornered animal. "I can't believe you went through my phone, August," she finally said, her voice trembling but trying to sound indignant. "That's such an invasion of privacy." I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound that seemed to startle her. "Privacy? That's what you're worried about right now? Don't you dare make this about me. You've been lying to me, sneaking around, and now you're caught. So again, I'll ask, who is Ryan?" Her jaw tightened, and she looked away, her eyes darting to the floor. "He's just a colleague," she said softly, almost too softly. "Don't lie to me," I said, stepping closer. "I saw the messages, Clara. I saw the photos. Don't stand there and insult my intelligence." Her head snapped up, her eyes flashing with anger now. "Fine," she spat. "You want the truth? Yes, Ryan is someone I've been seeing." The word hung in the air like a slap. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I knew what I'd seen, but hearing her admit it was something else entirely. "Why?" I finally managed to ask, my voice cracking. "Why would you do this to me? To us?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair, clearly frustrated. "It's not about you, August. It's about me. I've been feeling trapped, stuck in the same routine, the same life. Ryan, he makes me feel alive again." "Alive?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're saying our marriage, our life, wasn't enough for you?" She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. But then she straightened her shoulders, her expression hardening. "I don't know what else to tell you. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did." I stared at her, the weight of her words pressing down on me like a boulder. I'd spent years building a life with this woman, sacrificing, compromising, believing in her. And now it felt like it had all been for nothing. "Do you love him?" I asked, the question barely audible. She didn't answer right away, and the silence cut deeper than any words ever could. "I don't know," she said at last, her voice small. I took a step back, shaking my head. "You don't know?" I repeated, the anger bubbling up again. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, risking everything we've built, and you don't know if you love him?" "I didn't come home tonight for a fight," she snapped. "I came home because I was hoping we could talk about this like adults." "Adults?" I said, laughing bitterly. "You mean the way you acted like an adult when you lied to me? When you cheated?" "Don't give me that crap, Clara." She flinched, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. "What do you want me to say, August? That I'm sorry? Because I am. But sorry isn't going to fix this." "No, it's not," I said, my voice cold now. "Nothing is going to fix this." I turned away, running a hand through my hair, trying to think through the chaos in my head. I couldn't even look at her. Every time I did, all I saw was betrayal. "You need to leave," I said finally, my back still to her. "What?" she asked, her voice rising. "You heard me," I said, turning to face her. "Pack a bag, call Ryan, do whatever you need to do. But you're not staying here tonight." Her eyes widened in shock. "You're kicking me out? This is my home too." "Not anymore," I said firmly. "If you want to be with him, go. But the moment you step out that door, our marriage is over. Don't ever think about coming back." She stared at me, her face a mix of anger, disbelief, and something else. Maybe fear. For a moment I thought she might argue, might try to fight for what we had. But then she turned on her heel and stormed into the bedroom. I heard her rummaging around, throwing things into a bag. Part of me wanted to stop her, to tell her we could work through this, but the other part, the part that was breaking, knew better. When she came back out, her bag slung over her shoulder, she didn't say a word. She didn't look at me, didn't plead or apologize. She just opened the door and stepped outside. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the silence, staring at the door long after it had closed. My chest felt hollow, my mind racing with everything that had just happened. This was the end, I realized. The end of US, of the life I thought we had. And for the first time in years, I had no idea what came next. The silence in the house was unbearable. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the door Clara had just walked out of, my mind spinning. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I'd built my life around her, trusted her completely. And now, in a matter of hours, everything I thought I knew was gone. I wanted to be angry, to scream, to break something, but all I felt was numbness. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. How could she throw everything away so easily? How could I not have seen this coming? I wandered aimlessly through the house, every corner a reminder of the life we'd shared. The kitchen table where we used to have breakfast together, laughing over nothing. The hallway mirror where she'd fix her hair before going out. Our bedroom, which now felt like a stranger's space. The bed was still unmade from that morning, and her perfume lingered faintly in the air. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty side of the bed. I couldn't sleep there, not now. Instead, I grabbed a blanket from the closet and headed back to the couch, collapsing onto it with a heavy sigh. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Her guilty expression, her hesitation when I'd asked if she loved him. The words she'd said kept echoing in my head. "He makes me feel alive." Was I really that boring? That predictable? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the coffee table. For a brief, stupid moment, I thought it might be Clara. But it wasn't. It was a message from my sister, Violet. "Hey, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I stared at the screen, debating whether to reply. How could I even begin to explain what had happened? But I needed to talk to someone, and Violet had always been the one person I could count on. "Not really," I typed back. "Can I call you?" Her response came almost immediately. "Of course. Anytime." I stepped outside, needing the fresh air to clear my head. The sun was shining, the world oblivious to the wreckage of my life. I dialed her number, and she picked up after the first ring. August? What's going on? The concern in her voice was almost enough to break me. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. Clara's been cheating on me? I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Oh, August. I'm so sorry. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She left last night. I told her to go. Good, Violet said firmly. She doesn't deserve you. You didn't do anything to deserve this. I don't know, I muttered, kicking at a rock on the sidewalk. Maybe I wasn't enough for her. Maybe I got too comfortable. No, Violet said, her voice sharp. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for her choices. She's the one who broke your trust, not you. Her words were comforting, but they didn't take away the ache in my chest. We talked for a while longer, and by the time I hung up, I felt a little less alone. But the reality of the situation hadn't changed. Clara was gone, and I had no idea if I'd ever feel whole again. The days that followed were a blur. The house felt emptier than ever, even though everything was still in its place. Clara's shoes were still lined up by the door, her favorite mug still sat on the counter, and her jacket hung on the hook in the hallway. It was like she'd vanished, leaving behind a ghost of herself to torment me. I avoided the bedroom entirely. The thought of sleeping in that bed, surrounded by the echoes of her betrayal, was unbearable. I spent my nights on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering where she was and if she was with him. The idea made me sick. The silence was the hardest part. The quiet that used to feel comforting now felt suffocating, like it was pressing down on me, amplifying every thought, every doubt. I turned on the TV just to drown out the noise in my head, but nothing held my attention. Everything felt meaningless. I tried to distract myself by keeping busy. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, organized the garage, even started fixing a leaky faucet in the bathroom that I'd been ignoring for months. But no matter what I did, the memories kept creeping in. Every corner of the house reminded me of her. The photo of us at the Grand Canyon, smiling and carefree. The throw blanket she'd insisted on buying because it was so cozy. Even the damn leaky faucet brought back a memory of her laughing at me for being too stubborn to call a plumber. I felt like I was going insane. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed her jacket from the hallway hook and shoved it into a box along with her shoes, her mug, and anything else that screamed her. The house felt a little less haunted after that, but the ache in my chest didn't go away. Then came the phone call. I was halfway through sorting old papers in the study when my phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was Clara. For a moment, I just stared at it, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to ignore her the way she'd ignored my trust. But curiosity, or maybe some leftover shred of hope, got the better of me. I picked up. "Hello," I said, my voice colder than I intended. There was a pause on the other end, then a hesitant, "Hey, it's me." I didn't say anything. Let her sit in the silence for once. I wanted to check in," she said eventually. "See how you're doing." I let out a bitter laugh. "How I'm doing? Really, Clara? That's what you called for?" Her voice faltered. "I know I hurt you, August. I know I messed up. But I didn't want to leave things like this. I still care about you." "Care about me?" I snapped. "You care about me? You didn't seem to care when you were sneaking around behind my back. Or when you walked out that door without looking back." "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't plan any of this." "Maybe not," I said, gripping the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles turned white. "But you still made your choices, Clara. And now you have to live with them." There was a long silence, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. But then she said something that stopped me cold. "I'm not with him, you know. I've been staying at a motel, trying to figure out what to do next." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt a flicker of relief, but the rest of me was too angry, too hurt, to care. Good for you, I said flatly. But that doesn't change anything. August, please, she said, her voice breaking. Can we just talk? In person. I need to see you. I closed my eyes, the weight of her words settling over me. I wanted to say no, to shut her out completely. But something, maybe the years we'd spent together, maybe my own stupid need for closure, made me hesitate. Fine, I said finally. Tomorrow. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. She let out a shaky breath. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. When I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't untangle. Anger, sadness, maybe even a little hope. But one thing was clear, whatever happened next, it wouldn't be the same. Couldn't be. The next day felt like an eternity. I couldn't focus on anything. My thoughts were stuck in a loop, replaying every word Clara had said during the call. I need to see you. What could she possibly say to make this better? Could anything make this better? By the time the evening rolled around, my nerves were shot. I didn't know if I was ready to see her. Part of me wanted to cancel, to tell her I couldn't do it. But deep down, I needed answers. I needed closure. When the doorbell rang, my stomach dropped. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the door, frozen. Then, with a deep breath, I opened it. There she was. Clara stood on the porch, wearing a simple sweater and jeans. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed with red like she hadn't slept. She looked different, smaller somehow, like the weight of her decisions was finally catching up to her. Hi, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside, letting her in without a word. She walked into the living room and stood there awkwardly, like a guest in someone else's house. The silence between us was unbearable, but I didn't feel like breaking it. If she had something to say, I was going to make her say it first. Thanks for agreeing to see me, she began, wringing her hands nervously. I know I don't deserve it after everything. I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, keeping my distance. You're right, you don't. So, what do you want, Clara? She flinched at the harshness in my tone but didn't back down. I want to explain, she said. I owe you that much. Go ahead, I said, gesturing for her to continue. She took a shaky breath, her eyes darting to the floor. I don't even know where to start. I never meant for any of this to happen, August. I swear. Started as nothing. Just casual conversations. I didn't think it would go anywhere. But, she trailed off, her voice cracking. But it did, I finished for her. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Yes, it did. And I hate myself for it. I wanted to feel pity, to believe that she truly regretted what she'd done. But I couldn't. The pain was still too raw. Why Ryan? I asked, my voice cold. What was it about him? She hesitated, as if searching for the right words. He made me feel noticed, she admitted. I know that sounds horrible, but it's the truth. Things between us, between you and me, had gotten so routine. I felt invisible. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. So, this is my fault? You cheated because I didn't notice you enough? No, she said quickly, her voice desperate. I'm not blaming you, August. This is on me. I made the choice and it was the wrong one. But I wasn't happy. I didn't know how to tell you that. I stared at her, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. So instead of talking to me, you ran to someone else. You destroyed everything we built because you felt bored. She broke down then, the tears spilling over as she buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm so sorry. The sight of her crying used to break my heart, but now it felt like a manipulation, a way to make me forget what she'd done. I refused to let her off the hook. Sorry doesn't fix this, Clara, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. You made your choice when you walked out that door. You can't just come back and expect me to forget everything. She wiped her tears, sniffling as she looked at me with pleading eyes. I'm not asking you to forget. I don't want to lose you, August. I love you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I love you. She had the nerve to say that after everything? I took a step closer, my eyes locked on hers. You don't get to say that. Not after what you did. Love isn't just a word, Clara. It's actions. And your actions showed me exactly how much I mattered to you. Her face crumpled, but I didn't let up. You need to figure out what you really want, Clara. Because this, whatever this is, can't be fixed overnight. And honestly, I don't even know if I want to fix it. She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand. I think you should leave. Again. Her shoulders slumped, defeat written all over her face. She nodded, grabbing her bag and heading for the door. Before she stepped out, she turned back to me, her voice trembling. I don't deserve another chance, but I'm going to fight for one anyway. I'm not giving up on us, August. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I just watched as she walked out, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed in the quiet house. For the second time, Clara had left. But this time, I wasn't sure if I wanted her to come back. After Clara left, I stood there in the living room, motionless. I should have felt relief or maybe even satisfaction for finally saying what needed to be said. But instead, I felt hollow. She had said she wasn't giving up on us. But what did that even mean? Did she really think words could undo everything? I ran a hand down my face and let out a long breath before sinking onto the couch. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This time, it felt like something was lurking in it. Memories, regrets, questions I couldn't escape. Did I still love her? That was the real question, wasn't it? For years, she had been my world. My partner, my best friend. We had history, laughter, dreams. Could I just throw all of that away because of this betrayal? I hated myself for even considering it. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through old pictures without thinking. There we were at the beach last summer, her head on my shoulder, the sunset behind us. Another photo of us at a wedding, her eyes shining as we danced. And then, a short video of her laughing at something stupid I said while we cooked dinner. I had loved her completely. But the Clara I loved and the Clara who had looked me in the eye and admitted to sleeping with another man, were they even the same person anymore? Before I could drown any further in my thoughts, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it. August, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. Please, just one conversation. It's important. Ryan. I stared at the screen, my grip tightening on the phone. What the hell did he want? 1,000 possible reasons ran through my mind. Maybe he wanted to rub it in my face. Maybe Clara had already told him she was leaving me, and he felt guilty. Maybe he just wanted to justify himself, the way all cheaters do when they finally see the damage they've caused. I clenched my jaw, my body tensed with anger. I didn't know this guy anything. If he thought I was going to sit down and have some civil conversation with him, he was out of his damn mind. But then another thought hit me. What if Clara didn't know he was reaching out? What if he had something to say that she wouldn't tell me? After a long moment, I exhaled sharply and typed a reply. Fine. One conversation. But don't think for a second that I'm here to make peace. The response came almost immediately. I'll be at Jake's bar in an hour. I put the phone down, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what I was walking into, but if Ryan had something to say, I was damn sure going to hear it. I arrived at Jake's bar 10 minutes early, but Ryan was already there. He sat in a booth near the back, nursing a drink, his leg bouncing restlessly under the table. He looked up when I walked in, his expression unreadable. I hated him on sight. For a moment, I considered turning around and walking right back out. But I had come for answers, and I wasn't leaving without them. I slid into the booth across from him, keeping my posture stiff, my fists clenched under the table. Say what you need to say, I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. Ryan sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. Look, I know I'm the last person you want to see, and I don't blame you, but I needed to talk to you, man. This whole thing, it's not what you think. I scoffed. Oh, really? Because I think you slept with my wife behind my back. I think you helped destroy my marriage. Am I wrong? He flinched at my words but didn't look away. I'm not going to make excuses. I was a selfish idiot and I hate myself for it. But I swear to you, August, I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late. I narrowed my eyes. What the hell does that mean? Ryan hesitated, then leaned forward. She told me she was leaving you, that she had been unhappy for years. I believed her. He let out a bitter chuckle. I was an idiot. I thought I was just, I don't know, some kind of escape for her. I never expected it to turn into something real. But then, he exhaled sharply. Then she started talking about the future, about our future. And that's when I realized I'd made a huge mistake. I clenched my jaw. So you're saying what? That you didn't actually want to be with her? He nodded, looking ashamed. Yeah, I tried to end it, August. Weeks ago. But she didn't take it well. She kept telling me she needed me. That you didn't make her happy. That you never had. A cold wave washed over me. I had braced myself for a lot of things, but hearing that she had rewritten our entire marriage in her mind, felt like a different kind of betrayal. Ryan continued, his voice lower now. When she told me she was leaving you, I told her not to. I told her she should try to fix things with you instead. But she got angry, said it was already decided. He shook his head. I didn't want to be the reason for any of this. That's why I ended things with her for good. And that's why she called you. I stared at him, my stomach twisting into knots. Clara had made it seem like she wanted to work things out, like she was lost, confused, regretful. But now I saw the truth. She hadn't come back because she wanted me. She had come back because he had walked away first. My hands tightened into fists. Ryan noticed. I'm not telling you this to hurt you more, he said quietly. I just thought you deserved to know. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay in control. You don't get to decide what I deserve. He nodded, looking down at his drink. You're right. I don't. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. But strangely, the anger was starting to fade. Not because I forgave him, because I didn't. I never would. But because, in some twisted way, this was the closure I had needed. I stood up. We're done here. Ryan didn't argue. He just gave a small nod and looked away. I walked out of the bar without looking back. That night, I sat alone in the house that no longer felt like home. Clara had texted me once, asking if I was okay. I didn't reply. For the first time in weeks, I felt done. Done with the pain, the what-ifs, the ghosts of our past. Clara had made her choice, and so had I. The next morning, I called a lawyer. It was time to move on.